Well, hey everyone, happy Wednesday. My name's Steve Schleter, and I'm here with the amazing Tammi Youngst. And welcome to the session. Say, Tammi, before we get into kind of how to explode their business in the second half, let's do some introductions. So, in case these folks haven't met us, don't know us, tell us a little bit about Tammi.
Well, first of all, thank you all for being here. It's such an honor for us to be able to serve you. Yeah, my name is Tammi Youngst. I am in the Carolinas region. I've been with Keller Williams for 20 years. I am the director of Bold, if you're familiar with Bold. Also, a KWU master faculty, co-coach with Steve and Never Ending Referrals. And I have a real estate team here in Mooresville, North Carolina. So, Steve, how about you?
Oh man, well they call me the in bold circles they call me the OG. I don't know if it's old guy, original guy, whatever it is. Kind of the first bold coach, if you will. To start that journey in 2009, and as an agent was one of the top 20 Remax agents in the state of Texas. Before joining Keller Williams on a leadership path. Became a team leader at the Austin Northwest Market Center with Gary Keller as my OP. So if you can imagine getting to spend Mondays with Gary Keller every Monday for 4.5 years, and how powerful that might have been. And today, I operate a couple of market centers in the Austin area. Live in San Antonio, part of the Keller Williams University Master Faculty, Bold Coach, and as Tammi said, co-coach with her on Never Ending Referrals. And today, we get to talk a little bit about what are you going to do with your sphere of influence to really catapult your business in the second half. And Tammi, I'm going to pull some slides up. And, actually, Tammi, our topic today, we call it the top three sphere tactics to explode your business in the second half of 2024. But before we jump into that, I want you to share with us. Oops, hang on a second. Let me take that back down. Share with us a little formula you and I were talking about this morning, because I think we can build some context around that. And we were talking about performance. Speak into that. I want you to talk to these guys about that.
Well, I mean, when we're looking at results in our business, ultimately it comes down to performance, right? Performance is are the results. And so if you would, grab your pen. I'm going to give you an equation that I love to look at when it comes to, the results and how we're performing. And it is this. It's performance equals my potential minus interference. So it's performance equals my potential minus interference. So the results are always, Steve, a result of, my ultimate potential and then limiting the interference. And interference can be distractions. It can be things that are happening in the marketplace. And more often than not, however, that interference is internal. And, when I say that it's internal, you might write this down as well. It's, memories outpace dreams, right? Memories outpace dreams always. So if we have a memory of something, Steve, and maybe it was that I reached out and had a conversation with somebody in my sphere, maybe it didn't go so well, or I didn't know what to say. That memory will outpace my dream to be able to go out and do that on the daily basis, if that makes sense. So that
Mm.
becomes interference that takes away from my potential, which ultimately affects my performance. And so I think that, when we're halfway through the year, that's such a great place to start is, you set those goals for a reason, right? And are you halfway? And if you're not, then, we already know that you're all full of potential. What's the interference?
Yeah, yeah. Well, in Tammi, I think that's really powerful when you contextualize that all this way. And I want us to watch a little video, and feel free to unmute yourself when it's done and chime in on some thoughts or put some thoughts in the chat about what are the lessons in this video about the formula that Tammi just shared, which is performance equals potential minus interference. And I want you to give context to this video around that formula. And let me set this up a little bit. Let me see if I can make sure I get this. Whoops, get this right here. Hang on. I think we just had I made a error here. Hang on a second. Tammy, tell me if the audio is coming through on this when we run it.
Okay.
Um, so here we have the New England Patriots, Super Bowl 51
Mm.
against the Atlanta Falcons. And with 30 seconds left, they're down 21-0. And they go into the half down 21-3. And with less than 2.5 minutes remaining in the third quarter, they're down 28-3. And let's watch what happens. And where does performance equals potential minus interference relate to this? Let's watch.
No sound.
First down, White.
Oh, there it is.
2007. Brady is caught. Tackle is missed and a first down for James White. Brady is a man. First down. Big conversion. Amendola out of bounds inside the 40. Now third down and 8. Brady flushed out. Will run and get it and slide at the 20 and take time off the clock. They've done a good job not giving up big plays. Now they'll throw. Pass is caught. That's White. Touchdown. Brady, big other time. Pass is caught. Second and 10. Pass caught. Mitchell again. They're going to the rookie. Third down. Pass is caught inside the 10 by Bennett. Brady. Pass caught. That's Mitchell. First down. Brady. End zone touchdown. And goal. Third and 10. Blitz off the corner. Pass is caught by Hogan. Free someone up for a big play. Near sideline Mitchell. What a half piece hit. Here's Edelman broken up, and the pass is no sign yet. Edelman comes down with a football, and they're saying it's a catch. And now this from Edelman. Incredible. Here's Amendola. Down near the 20. On first down, Brady underneath. Finds White. White down inside the 10. And it's coming for 11. Amendola is down. Amendola's in it. But it depends on the penalty. Sideline. What a throw, Amendola. Brady. And the save is Connor Hogan. Inside the 40. Brady down the gut. Pass is caught. Fake it to Hogan. Flip it to White. Looking for blocks. Getting blocks inside the 20. Out of bounds in the 15. All right. But Tammy, and I'd love for anybody to chime in. What did we learn from Brady, the Patriots? I mean, they're down at halftime and it's not pretty. I mean, they're still down 28-3 with just over 2 minutes to go in the third. What are our lessons, folks?
Throw in the chat, guys. I mean, for me, Steve, number one, it's always going to come down to mindset. They believe that it was possible. They believed in their potential, first of all, and they limited the interference, meaning the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Pamela, yes, they did not give up.
Mm-hmm. How you play the second half.
They plan their plan. They plan their plan and work their plan. They didn't give up, like she said. Mm-hmm. However, Atlanta had it, but they just, I don't know, what's the word? They went to sleep. They got lazy. They got complacent. Mm-hmm. And as a result, they got kicked back on their heels.
There you go, Jimmy. Yeah. I mean, so all these lessons. So Tammy, as you said, they believe in their potential. Jim, and it works the same way too. If you kind of let up, right? And okay, what got me here? And if I don't stay on that, and of course, who doesn't get the credit, as much as Brady and the offense was the defense that they, they didn't allow that crazy scoring. that happened in the first half of Atlanta to continue. They shut them down. But if you get lazy, you could lose momentum. And this is certainly not a time to do it. And we're going into a time where you could get off your game plan because the NAR changes and all of this. And so, the halftime adjustments we're making right now are vital.
Yeah.
And yet it's vital that you believe in your potential, right? And you believe in your value. You're certain on those things, and then you cut down the interference. What are some of the interference that might get in the way if we talk about just our business right now in the second half? How do we eliminate interference, Tammi?
Oh gosh, well, it depends on where it's coming from.
Hmm.
Literal is probably time blocking,
Hmm.
right? It's the interruptions. It's going back to, the ability to focus on the 20% activities right now is more important than it's ever been. Um, you know, Other interference though, like I said, is going to come from inside. It's going to
Yeah.
come from our belief in our ability to connect with people, belief in what you're doing.
Mhm.
Do you believe that the business really does sit in your database, or do you believe that you're better off cold calling?
Yeah.
Where it is all, it can come from anywhere, Steve.
Yeah. Well, let's dig in. We're going to pull up the slides and we're going to get into our conversation today. Let me take us here, and thank you for your comments. So here we go. And we talk about the top 3 sphere tactics to explode your business. And as we jump into this today, Tammi, we start off just about every Zoom webinar of this nature that we do with this conversation right here. And, Tammi and I, we come at this and we say, really, everything you need to know about success with your database is on this slide right here. Now, Tammi, we're talking macro, right?
Hmm.
Everything they need to know is right here. And by the way, this is called the trust triangle, and it comes from Harvard University. They did a study on trust, and they said they studied how did executives uh, who had a great trust relationship with the people they led, leaders that established great trust with the people they led, what was at the core of that trust? And they broke it down to these 3 things. Now, Tammi, this was about leaders. How does this apply to your sphere of influence, your database?
Well, it's, number one, I think that we work so hard to prove to people that we're competent.
Hmm.
So in essence, we end up logicking people to death. We dump all of our knowledge constantly on them. And the 2 pieces that actually are the magic sauce are the empathy piece, them truly knowing that you care about them, and you being yourself. We all know when somebody's not being genuine, even if you don't know someone, you can tell when they're not being themselves. And so, those 2 pieces are really what brings the logic piece full circle.
Yeah. So when we say logic, as we're going through the conversation today, I want you to think about, what are my delivery points for these 3 things that build trust? And because, of course, the need to develop trust with my database today, the consumer, is they're extremely confused because there's all this clickbait stuff about the industry, the market, interest rates, the economy, homes are overpriced. Um, and it can cause people to hold back, and so they have to have a trusted advisor, a trusted guide, being you, who the logic piece. So you have to say, okay, how do I make sure that the people in my database are really clear that I understand the market dynamics? I know real estate. So the logic piece is, I know you can do it, I know your reasoning and your judgment are sound. They know you know your stuff. And then, as Tammi said, the empathy is what takes that to being, a whole nother level of, not only do you know your stuff, you care about me, and they feel like they're getting the real you. And so, Tammi, we talk about this all the time, and it's Susan Scott tells us the conversation is the relationship, and what do we mean by this?
You really can't stay in a relationship with someone without the conversation. And Steve, that conversation can be, texting with people and doing things like that. I mean, that's how we communicate now. However, just sending the emails, just sending, doing social media posts, sending postcards, and being in front of people does not keep you in relationship with someone. It doesn't keep that trust triangle alive. It's the relationship. I cannot stay married to my husband without speaking to him, right?
Yeah, it might be a challenge, and
He might enjoy it for a short period of time, y'all. However, that's not going to work.
you don't go, do I have a wife?
Yeah, yeah.
So here we go, and many times when we have this conversation about conversations, Tammy, many times people will avoid conversation because they're not sure what to say, or they've been out of touch with somebody for a long time, and they think like, well, gosh, I haven't talked to this person in 3 years. What's going to happen when I call them? Are they going to chew my head off? Right? Well, stranger. And here's the truth. They're not going to like this. They're not thinking about you. They're not thinking about you. They don't know that you haven't called them in 2 or 3 years because they're not thinking about you. You aren't on their mind because you're choosing not to be on the top of their mind. And so, and to see just how powerful a conversation can be to reactivate the relationship. I'm going to take you back to my conversation with Barbara. Some of you heard this before, and if you haven't, man, you got to really listen and hear the lesson. And I'm driving down the interstate, and my phone rings, and on my truck on the display it says Barbara DeLamo, and it's a 210 area code, which is San Antonio, where I live, and so I know it's I know it's a San Antonio phone number, but Barbara DeLamo, who's Barbara DeLamo? I can't place the name. And I'm going, well, she's in my contacts. I must know her. Let me take the call. And I press the button and I take the call. Now, don't judge me. I did something. Maybe you would do it too. I acted like I knew who Barbara was. I'm going, hey, Barb, what's going on? Not having a clue who this is. And I'm going to have to use Barbara's voice for effect. And she goes, well, hi, Steve. And I go, well, hey, Barbara, what's going on? What can I do for you? She goes, well, hey, I'm calling to wish you a happy birthday. And I'm going, well, Barbara, thanks. And guys, it's like July 9th. And my birthday is not till July 31st. And I go, Barbara, you're kind of early. And she goes, I said, my birthday's not till the end of the month. And she goes, I know. I wanted to be the first one. Am I the first one? I go, well, yeah, you sure are. And I'm going, who the heck is this woman? Still can't place her. And then she asked me a question. She goes, are you still out coaching Bold? And I go, as a matter of fact, I am. And she said, I took the first Bold in San Antonio that you did in 2009. And and she said, are you, tell me about Bold. Where are you doing Bold? What's going on with Bold? And we had a brief conversation about Bold. And then she said, you had a girlfriend that lived in San Antonio. I know she sponsored one of our sessions. You guys still together? I said, yeah, we sure are. She goes, what was her name? I said, Shelly. Yeah, she was kind of cool. She's still working for that company. And she's asking questions about Shelly. And then she went on and she said, you had mentioned that you were originally from the San Antonio area. You were born there and maybe even considering a move back. Did you ever make the move to San Antonio? I said, yeah, about 2.5 years ago. And she goes, oh man, I guess I was a day late, dollar short. And I said, well, of course, Barbara represented myself. And she got my address. And then she asked me a question. What are you doing for fun in San Antonio? What do you love about San Antonio? She gave me a referral to a brunch place. We had a nice conversation about that. And then she asked, so what kind of big plans do you and Shelly have coming up? We talked about a trip to Egypt, a trip to Russia. Never went to Russia, not going there now. Yeah, and yet, Tammy, this whole conversation was 6 minutes, maybe 7 minutes. And I went from who the heck is Barbara to feeling completely connected with Barbara in 6 minutes. And the last time I had seen Barbara was 2009. And this was around 2017 when I got this call.
8 years.
Now, Tammy, that would be enough right there to go, man, that call made a connection.
Yep.
And yet this is not the rest of this is not the whole real lesson.
No.
The real lesson was I noticed on the dash as I hung up, it didn't say Barbara DeLamo. It said maybe Barbara DeLamo. And when it says maybe, it means they're in your correspondence. And I said, have I been communicating with Barbara? And when I got home, I pulled up my email.
This is fascinating.
And this is what I saw, folks. Let me pull this up. I had been getting an email every 3 weeks on average for 7 years.
Mm.
7 years. Must have been 2018, I guess, when I pulled it, when that happened. 7 years I'd been getting an email, and Tammi, my response when I get a phone call is, what?
And who is it? Don't
Who's
even know
Barbara?
who she is.
Yeah. Now, Tammi, a week later, I get an email from Barbara. What did I do?
I'm sure. I bet you opened it.
I opened it. I opened it because now there was a relationship, and I was curious what she was communicating. And, I get another one a couple of weeks later, and I open it as well. And so, isn't it interesting that Barbara thought she was doing all the right things by having a simple email touch campaign going? And yet, Tammi, at the end of the day, it was completely ineffective.
Yep.
Why was it ineffective?
There was no relationship, no conversation. And that's where we go back to what Susan Scott says. The conversation is the relationship. It's
Yeah.
the linchpin, Steve, that ties all those things together. In fact, you could strip away the email, you could strip away the direct mail. And if you just had the conversations with people, you would actually still get more business out of them. And they would think of you when they think of real estate versus, 34 other touches that have
Mhm.
nothing to do with them hearing from you.
Yeah. It's so powerful.
Mhm.
And so let's talk about what was at the core of that conversation. So let me go back to this, and that is, at the core of that conversation was a little thing Tammi called Ford. And so walk us through this. Where did Ford show up in this conversation?
Well, Barbara actually used all four of them. I mean, Ford is simply a framework to have a conversation with someone around, thinking, family or friends, occupation, what they do for a living, recreation, what they do for fun, or dreams or goals. So Ford is just, those go-to questions that I would have in my back pocket to ask someone about the things they care about most. And I think that's the most important part. If any of you have heard about Ford, and I would imagine probably all of you have, and sometimes we're always looking for, what's the next shiny penny? Give me something else. And yet I always choose that maybe this will be the time that you hear it different. You don't have to ask questions about all of those things. Barbara did, and yet she didn't have to. And yet, if you'll ask questions about those things just to start a conversation, and then you really listen to what they share, then you ask the follow-up questions rather to what they said. And now you're deepening and strengthening the relationship. And on the flip side, Steve, we probably naturally do this with friends or new acquaintances that have nothing to do with business. We naturally are curious. And so we ask those, and yet sometimes in what we would perceive to be a business situation, our nerves get the best of us.
Mhm.
And so we feel like we're being disingenuine, right? And so we don't ask those questions. The cool thing about Ford, guys, everything about Ford, those are all the things that you care about most in your life. Every one of those things, your family, your friends, what you do for a living, what you do for fun, your dreams, your aspirations, your goals. And Steve, your camera just got covered
Yep.
up.
Mhm.
And if you ask questions of people around those things, they remember and they know that you care.
Yeah. It creates that real personal connection, right? I felt this connectedness with her, that in one simple 6-minute conversation. Now,
Hmm.
it doesn't mean you have to somebody you haven't talked to in a long time and you go through all four. It just happened to organically go that way.
Right.
And I don't know that she even intended for that whole thing to evolve that way. It's just that she went with the flow. And she just had an entry point to the conversation, which was happy birthday. And I don't know if she had it down wrong, or she was just quick on her feet. I never asked her. I have to go back and ask her. And yet when you look at this, um, somebody I haven't been in touch with, I could pull up their Facebook and I could see that they just had a trip to Costa Rica. You're going to Costa Rica this week.
2 days.
And, and I'd say, Tammy, I saw your Facebook post with your trip to Costa Rica, and God, we haven't talked in so long. You cross my mind so often, and I just had to check in on you and see how you are. And God, tell me about your amazing trip. Yeah, and yeah, what's been going on with work, and just go with where. Well, I just wanted to reconnect. And by the way, I'm in real estate, and been a lot of crazy things going on in the real estate world, and just curious. What are you hearing about the real estate market? Yeah, I can layer it in. In fact, we're gonna show you how to do a care conversation using Ford in a few minutes. But remember this framework. This is the way you can get easily back in a relationship. And you've been on my mind. I saw your post, and just let it be a reconnect and have it be authentic, your energy, not fake energy. And we're going to show you a way to even use Ford in a business conversation in a few moments. So,
Can I
go ahead.
say something in there for just a second, very quickly? Is don't underestimate the power of the conversation that we just went through. And what I mean by that is, no matter what's going on in the real estate market, the reasons that people make a move aren't ceasing to exist. They still exist. I always, you've heard me, Steve, talk about the D's, right? It's diplomas, diamonds, diapers, divorce, death, deployment. All of those things are still happening no matter what is happening in the real estate market, what's happening in the economy, what's happening in election, what's happening in interest rates. And if you're having the Ford conversation, what happens is you are naturally going to uncover and learn about those life events that
Mhm.
cause people to make a move. And you
Yeah.
already have the relationship. So the trust is already there. It's pretty easy to reestablish. And now this is how you start to fill your pipeline as you're uncovering things. So don't underestimate that conversation.
Great point, Tammy, because it's those are the changes in any of those things are kind of early signs of a pending move. They may not even know it yet, but if I'm talking to them about family and they just graduated their youngest from high school and they're going off to college and
That's
they
right.
live in a 4,200 square foot house that they don't need all that space anymore,
Yep.
I know that's a very impending sign of a change, and they're going to get more consistent follow up. They go on my warm list, right? They're not hot yet. They haven't raised their hand. And yet on my warm list, they're going to maybe get more frequent, or I'm going to send them a market update, on values or something like that. It'll be more strategic with maybe some of the seeds I plant with somebody that surfaces to the warm list as a result of a simple Ford conversation.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so we kind of grease the wheel, for the opportunities ahead. So let's keep going. And in fact, one of the things we're going to be talking about on July 1st on our Never Ending Referrals session, Tammy, is we started in one of our more recent sessions, our last session. We always go back and we talk about, how do we have to position ourselves today as the trusted advisor in
Mhm.
real estate, because the consumer is very confused about the market, the industry, the to dos or not to dos in real estate. Should I sit, to the sideline? Is it time to get in the market? And they hear so much contradictory media clicks that they just stay stuck. And Gary Keller made a comment that at the beginning of the shift, he said it's the agent with the right messages that match the market that's going to win the market. And of course, they have to also have what we call a MOFR, an offer for making offers for immediate response. So, Tammy, on my markets, these are some of the possible messages around the market that
Yep.
I can create curiosity around that cause people to have engage me on real estate. In my markets right now, buyers have breathing room. We've hit over 4 months inventory in both the Austin and San Antonio markets, and list to sales price ratios are going anywhere from 93 to 97%, which
Mhm.
means that there's room for negotiation, concessions, interest rate buy downs. We're still on one of the fastest, let's see. We're still in one of the fastest growing regions of the country. During the fall and winter, we ran a campaign called Buy the Dip. And darn it, we got a sensitive mouse here.
Steve is trigger happy today.
I'm not going to touch anything. I'm going to stop it. We did a campaign called Buy the Dip, and the seasonal dip, and so we had these headlines and things that would cause people to say, well, maybe now is the time. Negotiation, concession opportunities, like around interest rates, for example. We would run a campaign said that did you know you can still get a fixed 30-year fixed rate interest rate of 4.99%, and when it's out there at 7. And how can you do that? Well, it's because we've got builders willing to pay down the discount points necessary to get you 5%, 4.99%. First time buyers, you've got less competition and more choice. Housing shortage, we've got a chronic housing shortage, and how that's going to affect the market long term and so on. So this is about, we do a whole nother session on this, which we're doing part 2 on Never Ending Referrals on July 1. And so you have a message, and then the offer is this. The offer we've been using successfully is we set the message that creates the curiosity that maybe there is a possibility for me in this market. And then the mofer invites them into an action. And it says, if you have any possible interest in buying or selling a home in the next 12 to 24 months, find out why the right time for you might be right now. Call me to schedule a no obligation strategy session. And Tammi, what are some thoughts? Give us some thoughts on this. So message, mofer, strategy session. Give us some thoughts.
Well, I think actually you covered it really well. I mean, it's all about knowing your own market, first of all. Where are the segments that are moving? I would be very, very specific on my audience. Where are the opportunities where they have inventory, and I would target my messages around those, because I'm going to be more apt to be able to serve that particular part of the segment of my market here.
Mhm.
And yet, it's just a matter of putting it out there and make it easy for them. I
Mhm.
mean, the easier you make it for people to connect with you. I might even say, text me, or I might say, here's a link to my calendar, just put
Mhm.
yourself on my calendar. I mean,
Wow.
how many of us would much rather like schedule the appointment with the doctor because I can go online and do it than even call the doctor's office? I mean,
Yeah.
that's how simple we've become. So I think that, the more simple you make the mofer, the more likely you are to get the response.
Wow. Make it easy to do business with you. And
Mhm.
and here's the thing, you heard me say in the mofer, let's go back to it for a second, is that if you have any plans in the next 12 to 24 months, and we say you're seeing mofer, right?
Yes,
Next 12 to 24 months, text me, call me, smoke signals, whatever,
that's right.
for a no obligation strategy session. And Tammi, we don't say now, we say the next 12 to 24 months, because they may have plans down the road and they're thinking, well, the environment's going to be better down the road. And yet, once they understand the dynamics of right now, they may be ready to move forward.
That's
And,
right.
and
Very right.
we can't sell over the phone, or we can't sell through a message. We really just have to get to their kitchen table. And the need today is to get to more kitchen tables, and that's why we're sharing these conversations that we're going to share with you today, is to help you get to more kitchen tables so that you can have the trusted advisor conversations. Again, these are some of the things that Tammi and I, work with our Never Ending Referrals crew on, is to make sure that you've got how to be that person, how to help people navigate the uncertainty of interest rates, inflation, the market stability, and there's specific conversations that do all that. We'll touch on that just a bit today, but let's keep going. I'm going to go back to our screen here.
Steve, can you put that screen with the mofers back up? So
I can.
yeah, they'd love to take a screenshot of that.
All right. You can be one bad mofer. Mofer. Oh, mofer. Right. Okay. There you go. So let's go on. And so, Tammi, don't you love that look? Yeah. Let's talk about this little thing. So, Tammy, we talked about Ford, and now we're going to talk about sandwiching a business conversation around a Ford dialogue. And this is like, how do we bring a business element of a conversation and a Ford conversation together to make, first off, a business conversation is just really warm and easy to get into. And let's take a look at this for a second. Here's the framework. If you're doing screenshot, this would be a good one to screenshot.
Yep.
And then you can just put that face up there for just getting giggles all day long. So salutation, let me walk through it. Salutation. That's where I go, I'm calling Tammy. I go, hey, Tammy, Steve Schleter at Keller Williams. Hey, I trust you're doing well. And by the way, I'm going to extend the salutation into a quick introduction of the purpose of the call. And I'm going, hey, let's only start again. Tammy, hey, Steve Schleter. Hey, just trust you're doing well. I was just calling to check in on you. Had a quick business question for you. And before I get into that, though, so now I'm going to ask Tammy a Ford question. And whatever I ask her, whatever her answer is, whatever her answer is, the next question comes off of her answer to the previous question. So I'll ask an appropriate follow-up question. Then I'm going to transition into the business purpose of my call. Once I roll out of the business purpose of the call, I'm going to ask a closing Ford question based upon her answer, an appropriate follow-up question, and then I'm going to wrap up the call. And so, Tammy, let's model this for a second. So can I call you?
Sure.
Okay, here we go. Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hey, Tammy, Steve Schleter over at Keller Williams. Did I catch you at a good time?
You did.
Oh, thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it. I had you guys on my mind, wanted to check in. Actually had a quick business question for you, but before I get to that, just give me an update on the Youngst family. What kind of exciting adventures are on the horizon for you guys?
Oh, gosh, Steve, you know us too well. So, our lives revolve around travel, and you just happen to call at a time we are leaving in 2 days to go to Costa Rica.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Costa Rica. Is this a first time to Costa Rica or?
Nope, nope. This is a follow-up time and a little longer of a trip, and not staying at a resort. We're gonna stay. I'll go into that. So yeah.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. Well, sounds like a great trip. I'll be watching your Facebook for the fun.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, hey, so I mentioned, Tammy, that a little business thought to my call today, and there's been I've had just so many clients, friends, family, um, people asking what's going on with the real estate market. There just seems to be a lot of confusion about, what's happening with interest rate. Is the market going to go up? Is it going to go down? What are interest rates going to do? And I just thought I'd reach out to folks, shed a little light on the market, answer any questions you have. And Tammy, I'm just curious, what have you been hearing about the market here in Mooresville?
Oh gosh, Steve. Obviously, we hear what we hear on the news, right? Interest rates are high, and there's nothing for anybody to buy, and that's pretty much what I know.
Yeah. Well, and those are both accurate. I mean, interest rates are, well, it's interesting, Tammy, they're actually really just above normal. Yeah. I think the way things have been positioned, we got used to abnormal.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't realize, Tammy, that if you go back over 30 years, the average interest rate was 5.97%, call it 6%. And so we're not even a percent above what's kind of normal. What
Mm.
we experienced for so long was just abnormal. And it was, and people, and of course, as long as inflation stays sticky, we're probably going to stay closer, to normal. And that seems to be the case. And yet the other thing is we actually have about twice as much inventory as we had, this time last year. So it's getting better. And yet, just curious, right now there's starting to be some opportunities in the market. And you and Bruce have any ponderings around real estate next year or two, or are you guys pretty happy campers?
I think we're pretty happy campers right now.
Yeah. Well, you're in a great spot, but just, anybody, just, there are some opportunities in the market right now. We'd love to serve them. And So Tammy, you got Costa Rica on the horizon here, but before I let you go, tell me, what else is news in the Youngs family? What's going on with Bruce? Work? Anything exciting there?
Oh, he is busy, 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 on the 5-year plan to retire.
All right.
Yeah.
And what happens after retirement?
Gosh, I have no idea.
I know y'all have that boat. We can be more time on the boat, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, perfect. Hey, Tammy, thanks for taking my call. It was great to catch up with you. And Tammy, like I said, there's a lot going on in the market and so forth, a lot of confusion out there at times. And I'm just going to stay in touch with you a little more frequently during these times, if that's okay.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
hey, if you need anything, real estate or otherwise, please reach out. Okay.
Got it.
All right. Have fun. We'll have fun in Costa Rica. Take care.
That's it.
Tammy, that's it. That's it. So,
Yep, 3 minutes.
wow, is that it?
Mhm. About
Wow.
3 minutes. Yeah.
And now, by the way, if Tammy was high social and she might expand on some things,
Yeah,
uh, and yet Tammy, was that enough for logic, empathy, and authenticity to occur?
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, very,
and
very genuine, very real. And here's the thing, Steve knows, just like you would know the people in your database, Steve knows that we love to travel. So it made sense that that's something that he would open with, right? Around recreation in the Ford model, if you will. You just have
mhm.
to know who it is that you're calling or see something on social media that relates to those 4 things. And that's what you ask questions about.
That's where social media is such a gift, right? I can do a little stalking and get the context for the call that I'm going to make that's going to allow Ford to just be very organic, because before we had social media, I mean, doing a care call using Ford, I might go like, how's the family? Well, if their spouse just died or something, it's like that could just open the wrong can of worms, right? Uh, and so it's so much easier today. If I just did on Sunday, if I had my DTD2, if you don't know what that is, you'll learn later, list, and I could just go through what are some of the life events or going on with some of these folks, and especially the ones I haven't been in connection with. Right. Once I'm in connection with, I just build off the last conversation. Now, Tammy, I asked a very important question when after I transitioned to business. I asked you a very important question. I want them to really make sure they write this down and that they got this. What question did I ask you?
What I was hearing about the real estate market.
Hmm, yeah.
Such an easy question.
Yeah.
Right. And based on whatever my answer was, something else to write down for all of you is you either validate that what they said was right or you educate them if they're not. You don't make them wrong. Steve actually did educate me because what I said was not completely accurate.
Mhm,
And yet he said, well, you're right. Right. That's how he made me not wrong. And
mhm.
yet he still went in and educated me. So it's
Yeah.
always educate or validate. And yet it's just, what are you hearing about the real estate market right now?
Yeah.
Such an easy question.
Well, and otherwise, if you want to tell them about the market, you just gurgitate a bunch of information that maybe isn't relevant to them or they have no interest in or no perspective on. And because you were paying attention a little bit to the market, it just, I went ahead and I made an offer. Right? Well, I asked a question. And if you had some interest, I would have made the offer for a no obligation business strategy meeting or a consultation, no obligation consultation strategy meeting, which I didn't go there because you didn't have a real need or desire. Yet I did ask the question, well, it sounds like you're watching things a little bit. Are you guys pondering possibilities? And that way, that might cause me to then make the offer for the no obligation strategy session. And we sit down at the kitchen table and explore. And again, today, people aren't just making decisions, yes, no, unless they have a life event. There may be a desire, but they're holding off on that desire because they think it's not a good time. So we've got that. So let's keep going, Tammy. We got one last segment to cover, and then we're going to share with them some resources they can tap into, how they can join us to become that trusted advisor and work on those skills. I love this graphic. So there you go. So we talked care conversation. Tammy, lead us into this conversation that we're going to talk business to business.
Well, it's twofold actually. Ultimately it ends up putting us into a position to build our business to business part of our database. And yet it's actually a way to bring great value to your sphere of influence, the people that that are in your database right now, and allow them to help you build the business to business. And so it really, it's my favorite conversation to have with a database is the one that we're going into. And it leads into, I think that Steve, from the very beginning, when you get into real estate, you're taught, hey, be the one-stop shop. If somebody needs somebody, to do their carpet or paint or their roof or, all the things around your house. And I think that for the most part, as an industry, real estate agents are very good at that. We have connections for all those things. Here's what I would really like you to embrace, though. Let's expand that. And I would have you write down the words lifestyle concierge. It's not just about being their real estate agent. It's about being their lifestyle concierge so that you're there to help them in all the areas of their life. And so, when we walk into this conversation, it's not just about growing your business network to be all around home ownership. It's to be around lifestyle and living in the community. And it's the most fantastic conversation you can have with a database.
Yeah.
So Steve, let's show them what it sounds like.
Let's do that. Somebody asked, can you put the care conversation back up for just a second? So there it is. If you can do your screenshot, do that real quick. I'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. She gone. All right. And so we got the 5-star conversation, Tammy. And if y'all want to screenshot this, you can screenshot that. We're going to send it to you as a follow-up. So don't worry about just scrambling through this. So you guys that are attending today, you'll get a follow-up with this recording. And we'll also send you the 5-star conversation compliments from Tammy and I. But Tammy, when I think about this, when we start thinking business to business, we do a whole session on business to business and never ending referrals. And it can be one of your biggest database growers. It can be one of your most loyal networks. And part of this is we undervalue who we are to our business community as real estate agents. And you got to realize if you position this correctly, because it's not going to be just about this conversation, it's about then the engagement with the referrals that you get for business contacts. You can go to business people and then they begin to realize you're generally the first, second, or third point of contact for somebody moving new to the area who doesn't have all those established relationships that we were showing on that slide. That person that moves to town going, what do I do about blank? And you become that connector. And so let's talk about how we can use our database to build a stronger business to business network. So Tammy, ring, ring.
Hello.
Hey, Tammy, Steve Schleter, how you doing?
Hey, Steve, I'm great. How are you?
Oh, I'm awesome. Hey, I was wondering if you could help me. We're working on a little project for our friends and clients, and thought maybe you'd be able to help out.
Hmm.
But before I get into that, now I would go into the same Ford thing, right? Like we did before. Now let's just skip that. So, Tammy, as I said, I'm working on this little project, and um, as you can imagine, as a real estate agent, I've got people moving to the area constantly from other parts of the country. And when they come here to Mooresville, I mean, they've left everything behind. Their auto mechanic, their nail person, I mean, you name it. They got a blank slate and they don't know where to go. And so what we're doing is we're building this directory of Mooresville's best. And we're curating that from our clients. And who are the people that really just um, are just outstanding. They're 5-star white glove. They're the best at what they do. And we figured, our clients know who those people are because they're using them. And so, just curious. And that the last, couple of weeks or so, um, has there been a company or service that you've used that just 5-star blew you away? Great job.
Yes, actually, we just had our windows done,
Huh?
and it this is actually true. So, yeah, just so happens that it is around a home. Yep.
Wow. So you had your windows done. What did they do that was so great?
Well, Steve, in the past we've had them done, and they either leave a mess on the porch, or they mess up our landscaping, or they're not really streak free. And they just had this really cool technique that suctions the water off of the window as they're squeegeeing it and cleaning it. And
Wow.
the windows just are the cleanest I think they've ever been.
Sounds like somebody we ought to have in our directory that we're building here. And
Mhm.
what's the name of the company?
It's actually B&F window cleaning.
BNF Window Clean. Do you happen to know a person we could contact there, who a good contact would be that I could reach out to?
Sure, it's Brian, and I would
Hmm.
give it to Steve.
Okay. Great, Tammy. Hey, thanks for that. We're going to include those folks in our directory, and I'll reach out to Brian. And by the way, when the directory is published, I'll let you guys know how to access it as well. By the way, when I reach out to Brian, Tammy, would it be okay if I mentioned that you connected us? Would that be okay?
Oh, absolutely.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you. Hey, Tammy, maybe while I've got you, maybe you can help me with another resource or another introduction. It's we had tax time recently, and we got a lot of calls for CPA. And do you have like a 5-star CPA? You have a great CPA referral. And quite honestly, my person retired a couple of years ago, and I haven't found that best of Mooresville, CPA yet. And I'm just curious, do you happen to have an introduction for somebody in that space that might be kind of 5-star, best of Mooresville quality CPA that you could introduce me to?
Steve, I'm gonna say probably no. And the
Okay.
reason I say that is because, we've had the same one forever, and yet I think my husband feels like we always leave money on the table. So I
Hmm.
don't know that I'd call him 5-star.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. I mean, I know that with our network being what it is, that I'm gonna find that person here pretty promptly. And when I do, is that a person you'd like to be introduced to as possibly considering as an option?
Oh gosh, yes. Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. Hey, well, when I find that person, I'll come back and make that connection for you. So thanks for, for again, for helping me out with BNF, and then I'll reach out to Brian. Um, before I let you go, like I said, crazy real estate market right now. Any questions about what's going on in real estate or the market? What are you hearing about the market here in Mooresville?
And then we would go into that conversation.
Go into that conversation, and I say, "Oh," and then I would wrap up with a forward question and follow up, and then I'd tie it down. And Tammy, that's the 5-star conversation. So take that apart, peel that back a little bit.
Well, like I said, it is my favorite conversation to have with the database. I feel that if you're having 4 conversations at a minimum every year, that can be 2 of those conversations is just building out that 5-star professional list. And so, number one, Steve shared that he's working on this project for, friends, family, past clients. I know he's a real estate agent, and yet he's building something to help me and to help the community. So I automatically would like to help him do that. Number two, when I had someone, I gave him that name. He asked me what was so great about working with them so that he can then share that when he calls the business owner of BNF. Secondly, he asked if he could use my name. Well, that's really important for 2 reasons. Now, when Steve, as the real estate agent, reaches out to BNF and talks to Brian, that's not a cold call for him. That's a warm lead, right? That is a warm connection. And by the way, think about the relationship equity that was just created between me and Brian, the business owner. That now Brian, business owner, is like, what? Like, I love her. She just connected me to a real estate agent who's not like charging me to put me onto a list of providers. And oh my gosh, real estate agents, they know everybody. And all those people own or sell houses. How cool is that? Right. So super cool. And then when I didn't have the CPA, Steve, you're going to continue calling through there. And I know in the interest of time, I'll just zip through that he's going to uncover, 2 or 3 of those. And now when he reaches out to those CPAs, he's got a list of warm connections in his database, right, to hand over to the CPA. And so it's just, Steve, it's such an amazing, amazing conversation. And you could even go as far as saying, hey, don't wait for me to reach out, by the way. If you have a great experience with any business in our area, whether it's a business, whether it's a service provider, doctor, place that you celebrate, whatever it is, any business in this area, I absolutely want to know and we want to support them. So would you please just make a mental note to reach out to me if that happens? Well, guess
Yeah.
what? I'm probably going to talk to them more than 4 times a year now.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So it's
Clinton
such an
mentioned
amazing conversation.
KW agent sites allow you to add those vendors, so you could place the really profile, those folks. And of course, in our Never Ending Referrals, we go through all the, what the conversation to have, how to enlist that person into your network and into your database. So Tammy, let's go through a couple of last thoughts here. And so when we think about the journey we've been on through this, um, we covered Ford and family, occupation, recreation, dreams, and the power of that to connect with people's highest value. And we think about that conversation that Barbara had with me and how it created connection in 6 minutes, from who the heck is Barbara to opening her emails to being in flow with her to feeling absolutely connected. And then we went through that care conversation using the Ford sandwich framework, and how simple it is to now have a business call that feels conversational. And it's the power of putting Ford on both ends, that makes that happen. Now, Never Ending Referrals, we also talk about the open face sandwich. What do you do when, the relationship isn't of that nature? And then Tammy, we wrapped up with the 5-star conversation. And of course, business to business, as we go through in Never Ending Referrals, we talk about how you can add 150, 200 people to your database who are now real relationships. And you can put that together in 6 months. So, if you're maybe new in a market, or that's been an underdeveloped part of your business, it can be so easy to curate through a big portion of it through the people you already know who can help you build it with the right people. So, Tammy, that said, we got a couple of things to share, and Tammy and I would like to share with you an opportunity to join us in our Never Ending Referrals community. And we have 8 core lessons that we teach around mastery of the database, and bringing all these skills, tactics, conversations to life. How do I become the trusted advisor? How do I position my message and my mofers? And if you'd like to join us on that journey, our next, in fact, Megan, if you'll put the link to Never Ending Referrals registration in the chat, you can go to neverendingreferrals.com. You can go to the link in the chat. And to be part of our Never Ending Referrals community, it's a simple investment of $39 a month. It's a minimum of 5 months. Our next live session is July 1st, Monday at noon. And we are live 3 Mondays a month. You have an online portal with all the recordings, interviews, resources. And we also, of course, do special sessions on the market, being the trusted advisor. We have a special section on July 1st, which is around the trusted advisor buyer consultation. It's about adding value to buyers, overcoming their concerns about the market, and doing it in a way that's going to help you get paid what you deserve with buyers. And so that'll be a special session we're doing July 1st. Tammy, any thoughts about what else they should know about Keller Never Ending Referrals?
Only that your business is your biggest business asset, and it's the number one determiner of predictability and consistency in your business. And if we haven't mastered this, Steve, I don't know how we ever jump in and look to master something else in the real estate space. We should always master this first. Your relationships are always going to be the greatest source of business and joy, by the way. Joy in the business. There's such a difference when you wake up in the morning and your feet hit the ground and you know that you're working in a business that you love and that you're working with people that you love. It's very, very different. And it's why, when you and I changed the platform around to make it so incredibly affordable, it's because Steve and I have massive passion around you guys creating the biggest business asset you possibly can.
Absolutely. In fact, we have people who've been with us for 2.5, 3 years because, we're constantly bringing it to the market of the moment. And, what are those market of the moment conversations that we have to make this business asset, a database, really produce the maximum that it can. And that's where the messaging, the mofers, we always look at the most timely messaging that's going to create results in the majority of our market. So any questions, please throw them in the chat. Happy to answer any questions you have.
And thank you all for joining us. We so value your time and trust that you got value out of being here today. Oh, and yes, can we put the QR code back up, Megan?
Yeah, I'll put that up.
And the registration link is also in the chat.
Yeah, registration is in the chat. And then, Tammy, there was in the chat, somebody was talking about the strategy session.
What's that?
If we sit down in the strategy session, think about that as simply this. So talk to me about what's been on your mind as far as your housing situation. Tell me about the situation, what your thoughts are. And it's really more about doing a needs analysis and asking questions and then matching up to the possibilities of your market. It's like, let's take, for example, Tammy, let's say one of your sons wants to buy a house and, you link me up, we have a strategy session and we get together and he's going, but I'm waiting for interest rates to come down. I might share with them, well, there's certainly that would make things possibly more affordable and yet possibly not. Let me share with you Barbara Corcoran. You know what Barbara Corcoran is, the Shark Tank lady? Here's an article. And these are kind of some of the things that we share with our students, right? Here's an article where she states, the biggest, blow up in real estate prices will happen if this happens. And she said, if interest rates drop 1%, all these people sitting on the sideline are going to come off the sideline into the market, and it's going to drive prices and demand up, which means we're very possibly back into bidding wars, fewer choices, and it could actually be a worse time. So here's my question, and you have to educate them on this. And then I would say, here's my question. If we can find a house that you can afford today that meets your needs, based upon everything we've discussed, do you want to get in the market today? And so the strategy session is first about finding out what it is they want to accomplish. And then you just show them how they can accomplish it today, if they can. The strategy session may indicate that it is better for them to wait. And yet, if they're waiting just because they're misinformed, that's the wrong reason to wait. Tammy, did I handle that right?
Nailed it.
Yeah. So, I think that's the best way to say that. So you got it. Perfect.
I don't see anything else.
I think we've pretty much got it. So, hey, be on the watch. Watch out for the recording. Go back and listen to this again. And you'll have the 5-star conversation attached with the email. You'll be able to download that, and we'll put the link also to Never Ending Referrals in the email. So we would love to see you on July 1st, and thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you all. Have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.